Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, of course, in compliance with the COPA guidelines, so not really of all ages, today we are nearing the end of the Supermayor story. This woman's glorious, corrupt nature is finally coming back to bite her. We have key advisors flipping, churning state's evidence. We have the books opened up so we can see what has been misspent, and oh boy, it's absolutely a crap ton of money. And it looks like she has booked herself a first-class one-way ticket, not to Las Vegas this time, not to Atlanta, Georgia, but to the state penitentiary. The Supermayor is headed for prison. Her allies are churning on her. People are getting fired in the village of Dolton due to mismanagement of finances and outright theft, and I'm all here for it. I'm here to break it down for everybody out there in the audience. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
Continues between its embattled mayor and the board of trustees. Trustees say the village faces a financial disaster, and they blame the mayor for mismanagement.
So the village of Dolton recently had yet another crazy board meeting among many crazy board meetings that we've covered on this channel before, but this one had a bit of a melancholy feel to it for a number of reasons. First and foremost, the Supermayor benefits YouTubers like me more than anyone in the world. I feel absolutely terrible for the residents of the village of Dolton who have to live under her governance, but the fact of the matter is, this story has done wonders for me personally because you guys absolutely love it, and a bunch of other YouTubers feel that way. But more important than that, more important than our selfish needs and selfish desires, this meeting had a ton of layoffs. A bunch of different staffers in the village of Dolton are without jobs, and the reason for that is because the Supermayor has incinerated so much of the village's money that they will not be able to make payroll by December, if not sooner. Now, we are going to get the full Lightfoot report Thursday, which by the way is today when I intend to release this video, and I may stream it live depending on what you guys out there in the audience think in a meeting where we will get the full extent of the Supermayor's theft. But needless to say, a bunch of people ended up losing their jobs, and some of them are corrupt allies of the Supermayor, but a lot of them are just people who had their payroll stolen by the Supermayor.
Last night's meetings were never going to be just business as usual in Dolton.
People around you that wants what's best for the people, not what's best for Tiffany.
People need and watching as this village being ran into the ground.
For months, Dolton's mayor and members of Dolton's board of trustees have faced off over the village's finances. They accuse her of overspending, and she accuses them of political retaliation.
This village is bleeding. If these residents knew the truth, they'd hit the roof.
So this local news segment starts off with a little bit of the comments from the citizens. They're absolutely devastated that their village was being run into the ground. And the thing is, according to multiple different reports, before the Supermayor actually took office, the village was in surplus, and now it has churned around to a plus $7 million deficit. And this is because of the Supermayor's lavish spending. And by the way, the council, the board of trustees, they did not take this with a scalpel. They took it with a hacksaw, trying to return the village's vehicles that the Supermayor has rented because they just can't afford to make payments. Her Suburban, her Tahoe, all these giant vehicles for her and her security detail cost a ton of money.
We're making decisions and spending money and then get mad when we don't approve it because it's not financially sound. I sat here and looked at a lease that y'all's paying $149,000 for one of them trucks. You make absolute, that's like when you're 19 years old and you go get a car and the interest rate 27%. That makes absolutely no sense. You're not making great finance. Excuse me?
Please state facts.
I mean, we famously documented that the Supermayor is paying upwards of $50,000 in interest on the Chevy Tahoe that she rides around in, which just goes to show you that she just doesn't give a damn about the taxpayer purse.
But let me tell you, here it is, dated December 27, 2022, the cash price of a 2023 Chevy Tahoe, $93,216.71. Interest and APR, $55,929.49. Total lease price, $149,146.20. Tell me if it's not facts, because your signature is all on it.
Well, now the chickens have come home to roost, and even if the super mayor ends up going to prison for stealing all of this money, that is not going to fix the problems in the village of Dolton. And by the way, it's not going to fix the problems in the Thornton Township, where the super mayor is also heading up that government over there.
Board members last night voted to limit the use of the village credit cards, lay off a handful of workers, including placing the deputy police chief, Lewis Lacey, on administrative leave. Several trustees accused Lacey of doing the mayor's bidding. He declined comment after the vote.
Now, we've discussed the head of the Dolton Police multiple times on this channel. This guy is Tiffany Hayner's puppet. The previous head of the police department was not going along with her insane spending, so she ended up ousting him. He is suing the village of Dolton over that ousting, which did not have board approval. And this guy is just part and parcel to the problems that the village of Dolton faces. He is the enforcement arm against those criticizing the mayor. We have the Tommy G documentary, where the Dolton police swarmed this guy in order to prevent him from getting into the village hall because they don't want that exposed.
In a minute, I'm asking you. This is a public taxpayer area that we're now being hassled. Step over here. The goons have come out. Okay. This is quite a response for people doing a story. So how many police vehicles are coming for this?
What exactly are you guys trying to accomplish?
The mayor. Is she a hero or a villain?
No.
This is part of the convoy too, guys. The taxpayer sponsored Tahoe's right there. At $150K for a vehicle. Oh wow. That's
We've seen different things where people are funneled to avoid them being able to attend the meeting by this very same police chief. And he is also an insanely frivolous spender, just like his boss. And very notably, and this was highlighted by Nate the lawyer, so credit where credit is due for him pointing this out, he spent $50,000 on a new police department. Oh, I'm sorry, let me fix that sentence for you. Not on the actual new police department headquarters, but on the sign that said that this was the new police department. $50,000 on a sign.
But as trustees, our goal is to look at finances and see how we can financially benefit. So at this moment, it's just costing us and costing us and costing us. Even that sign on it, that was about $50,000. We can't continue to spend money when we're here today trying to make a transfer just so we can pay the bills.
And his excuse when confronted by this is absurd.
Okay. So as relates to Melody Fitness, I still believe it should be a police station. Our goal is to turn it into that. The board see fit that they would like to sell the property. I still think the people should have a say-so on that. I know when we did put the sign up, a lot of residents was happy that the police station was closer on Sibley and then that they can get to calls a lot faster. So my goal is still to do that. And what people not telling you is it is in a TIF district. That's where that police station sits at. And then also when they purchased the sign, Chief Lacey, what account did it come out of? Because when they tell you stuff, they don't tell you where money come from.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The sign was paid for out of asset forfeiture. We have a state and a federal. It was recently brought to one of my commander's attention that said that our asset forfeiture was dried up. Our asset forfeiture is not dried up. We still utilize our asset forfeiture, and money is still being put into asset forfeiture. That being said, that's what that money was used for that.
So first of all, civil asset forfeiture is one of those processes that are incredibly corrupt and horrible. This is where the police determine that your property is guilty of a crime. They seize it, then they can sell it, and in the most corrupt police departments, that funding ends up going into the police department budget. But second, because the Village of Dolton Police Department is a part of the Village of Dolton, and they're in a huge deficit in the village, assuming that this seizure was legit, which I sincerely doubt, the idea that you would incinerate money and use as a justification the fact that it was asset forfeiture funds that you stole from residents of the Village of Dolton is absurd in every possible way. It's objectively insane, and this is what this guy was arguing. $50K on a sign is not justified in any way, shape, or form. The fact of the matter is, it's very likely that whoever made this sign is well connected to the police department department or towards Tiffany Henyard, and this is a perfect example of that corruption. And also, and this is absolutely crucial, remember the police department is facing a lot of scrutiny over their finances due to the excessive overtime, which we've talked about many a times on this channel.
The officers are paid every 2 weeks, which without overtime is 80 hours. But when they're put on Henyard's detail, that 80 hours balloons to well over 100 hours, sometimes 200 hours. And in the case of Officer Terry Young last May, 303 hours worked over a 2-week period. That resulted in a single paycheck of more than $13,000.
How does a person put in a 2-week pay period, 303 hours? That's impossible. That's impossible.
336
Does he
hours.
never go to sleep?
In fact, there are 336 hours total in 2 weeks, meaning Young was not being paid for only 33 hours over that period.
But in addition to that, they weren't making payments on their police vehicles.
Yet another shock to Village of Dolton trustees, a letter falling on their desks dated February 14th. Representatives from Kansas State Bank threatening to repossess 13 Village vehicles, saying more than $76,000 is overdue and climbing.
The Board of Trustees approved payment in May of 2023.
But where that loan payment went that was due 9 months ago is anyone's guess. Lawyers for the bank now warning the Village, pay up or be ready for repossession agents to take the vehicles, which include 6 police cruisers.
So think about the madness in this particular situation. You have 6 or 7 police vehicles that are about to be repossessed by the creditor because they're not making payments on that because Tiffany Henyard is stealing the funding. This guy has $50,000 from asset forfeiture funds, but rather than use that to, pay off the police vehicles so you don't end up in that embarrassing situation where they ended up getting towed away by the creditor, they decide that they're going to spend it on a sign. I hope the sign looks absolutely beautiful, but in reality, this is a marker of corruption.
This is targeted. This is harassment.
The board also discussed selling a village-owned building that has a police sign on it but was never converted, and selling Henyard's 4 SUVs used for her security detail.
Now, to make matters worse, what the local news said right there is perfectly accurate. That building that they were converting into a police station never actually was converted. So you spend $50,000 of money that you steal from the citizens through a very questionable process known as civil asset forfeiture. You put up the sign on the building, but you never actually follow through. So $50,000 down the drain. Now, of course, they're trying to sell it. They're trying to sell the super mayor's vehicles. That they're trying to get out of debt in any way, shape, or form. But the fact of the matter is that they're not going to be able to recover from what the super mayor has done. And by the way, we're going to hear in great detail from the Lightfoot report how many first-class flights Tiffany Henyard has billed to the Village of Dolton, how many Thornton Township expenses she's billed to the Village of Dolton, and of course, the hotels and all the travel, all the craziness, and the hair and makeup and all that nonsense, because we have seen in the reports that she has been billing her hair and makeup person as an assistant to the government, when in reality, that's just her personal fix my appearance kind of person.
We've spent almost $250 some odd thousand on these vehicles. If we keep the lease for the 5 years, which is 60 months, we would be spending $718,000. Most of them was signed without proper authority anyway.
I mean, again, 4 SUVs are going to cost them, or have already cost them, $250,000. The remainder of those SUVs are about $700,000. So we're looking at close to $1 million. Maybe it's just the $700,000 and that's the total on 4 vehicles. And you might think that's crazy, but remember the clip I showed you earlier where she's paying almost double the sticker price of the vehicle in terms of the interest rate on these leases, because Tiffany Henyard is signing her name, signing the Village credit card without authorization, although she's not even negotiating down the price.
You throw a lot of things up here that don't be true. It's simple counting, baby. All you have to do is multiply.
Now, Henyard, of course, denies everything. That's her go-to move. She says that's not real, that's fake news, you're just spreading propaganda. But in reality, the contracts are what they are. When you have a copy of them, you can see the full amount if you were to pay them off over time, over the full term. And guess what? That's the amount you're going to pay. And I also want to point out, I don't know if people are hearing this correctly, that a bunch of these vehicles are leases. So at the end of paying all this money, you don't even get to keep the vehicle. That's just the end of the lease. It's the most crazy thing I've ever seen in my life. Somebody needs to send Dave Ramsey over there in order to clown these people, because they absolutely deserve to be named and shamed.
Another issue board members are trying to square is the employment status of Henyard's former top aide, Keith Freeman. who is now charged with bankruptcy fraud. Henyard fired him from Dolton Township, the other board she runs, but Dolton trustees consider him a whistleblower, and firing him would set the village up for a lawsuit.
Now, this is where things get absolutely crazy, because Keith Freeman, one of the villains of this whole entire story, Tiffany Henyard's right-hand man, and some people were reporting actually her boyfriend, has decided to flip on the super mayor, her number one ally, the guy that's been controlling the finances for her, the guy that's on her charity organization that turned out to be an absolute fraud. He has decided to turn to the village of Dolton, give them evidence, and this is because of his bankruptcy case, and likely he's cooperating with the feds and with Lori Lightfoot and with the village of Dolton and with state investigators in order to get himself a lesser sentence. So all of a sudden, Tiffany Henyard has struck back. She has fired him from the Dolton Township, but before she was able to fire him here, they decided to give him whistleblower protections, so now he's on that side. And the fact of the matter is, this is the guy who already is facing criminal charges. The only way he was going to get out from under them is if he revealed some of the crimes of Henyard. That is going to lead to her going to prison. The Dolton residents, the board of supervisors, have tried everything and anything for years to get some accountability from the government, but this is the guy who knows where the bodies are buried, and you could tell by the super mayor's reaction, she is none too pleased about this guy being kept on payroll.
Henyard made it clear where she stands.
Keith Freeman is fired from the village of Dolton.
Again, Keith Freeman, who I was talking about in my previous video on the super mayor, check the playlist linked in the description, was the number one ally, the number one enabler. He was also taking first-class flights on the village of Dolton payroll and again on the Dolton Township payroll. But all of a sudden, in this meeting right here, Tiffany Henyard's like, he is fired. He is no longer employed at the village. And by the way, the board of trustees need to protect him for two reasons. One is that he is actually a whistleblower. He is actually giving them the information, but two, if you fire somebody while they're a whistleblower, they end up having the ability to sue the village of Dolton, and guess what? The village of Dolton cannot afford any lawsuits. They are in an absolutely dire financial situation. When you go to the actual meeting and not the local news segments, you hear all these different people that they're laying off, you see the reaction to it, you hear the crowd, and you know that it's pretty much the beginning of the end for the super mayor. She is on her way to prison. I hope she gets herself a nice cell, but I am praying to the gods of the gods that the super mayor asks for a public trial that is on camera. I am praying to the Lord Almighty that the super mayor will, of course, decide to represent herself, argue the case in court without an attorney, or get herself a really crazy ghetto attorney and make sure that she testifies at trial, because we cannot let Tiffany Henyard go. We cannot let her fall like this. This is the end of a gangster movie. She either has one of two choices, which is to try to turn state's evidence herself, which she can't do, go into witness protection. Nope, that's not the end of this movie. Or lock the doors, barricade herself in, snort a pile of cocaine, and decide that she's gonna fight anybody that comes through the door. That's the super mayor I know. That's the super mayor I appreciate. And of course, I'm talking metaphorically, but that's what I want to see. I want to see her go balls to the wall after everyone, fight back as we expect, go through the whole trial phase with defiance, because we need the entertainment value. And honestly, the village of Dolton should try in some way to just monetize their YouTube channel, read super chats during the meetings, because they got to cover up this deficit, and the best way possible to do it is to monetize the fall of the super mayor. Trust me, I had a very nice wedding with my wife, due in large part to the super mayor's monetization ability, and the fact of the matter is, the village residents need to get some of the money back that was stolen from them by this woman, by her horrible crew of lick spittles and absolute morons and thieves. But that's not really gonna happen. They're just gonna lose out, and we're gonna hear the devastation that this woman has wrought over the village of Dolton Thursday. And again, if you want me to stream that live on this channel, let me know in the comments of this video, and I will set up a stream, very impromptu, maybe invite some special guest appearers on said stream so we can see what Lori Lightfoot has in store for us. Again, absolute madness that I'm waiting on a report from Lori Lightfoot, one of the worst mayors in Chicago history. But of course, they have a worse mayor now, so I guess by comparison, she looks good, and by comparison to the super mayor, she looks even better. better. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the fall of the Super Mayor. Till next time.